Francis is one of the most hated men in the world today. Those who hate him most are not atheists or Protestants or Muslims, but his own followers. Why do Christians and Catholics hate him so much? Because he is fluent in blasphemy and is actively working to subvert the church and Christianity in general. This is the Pope who informed his flock that relationships with Jesus are dangerous and harmful. Breaking with centuries of Christian tradition, Pope Francis sparked fears that he is an illegitimate pope with a sinister agenda when he told a crowd of 33,000 pilgrims in St. Peter's Square in Rome that a personal, direct, immediate relationship with Jesus Christ must be avoided at all costs.
Nella Chiesa non esiste il fai da te, non esistono battitori liberi. Quante volte Papa Benedetto ha descritto la Chiesa come un noi ecclesiale. Talvolta capita di sentire qualcuno dire io credo in Dio, credo in Gesù, ma la Chiesa non mi interessa. Quante volte abbiamo sentito questo? Questo non va. C'è chi ritiene di poter avere un rapporto personale, diretto, immediato con Gesù Cristo, al di fuori della comunione e della meditazione della Chiesa. Sono tentazioni pericolose, sono tentazioni dannose, sono, come diceva il grande Paolo VI, dicotomie assurde. È vero che camminare insieme è impegnativo e a volte può risultare faticoso. Può succedere che qualche fratello o qualche sorella ci faccia problema o ci dia scandalo, ma il Signore ha affidato il suo messaggio di salvezza a delle persone umane, a tutti noi, a dei testimoni ed è nei nostri fratelli e nelle nostre sorelle con il loro dono e il loro limite che ci viene incontro e ci fa riconoscere. E questo significa appartenere alla Chiesa. Ricordatevi bene, essere cristiano significa appartenenza alla Chiesa. Il nome è cristiano, il cognome è appartenenza alla Chiesa.
And as though that wasn't disturbing enough, Francis followed up with an equally sinister proclamation that Jesus is Satan. Pope Francis's inverted version of Christianity is confusing for many. However, the picture becomes clear when you understand who the pontiff is really serving. To quote French president candidate Marine Le Pen, Pope Francis is a globalist bulldog who is loyal to the New World Order. In 2017, Pope Francis called for a one-world government and political authority, arguing that the creation of a one-world government is needed to combat issues such as climate change. Speaking with Ecuador's El Universal newspaper, the Pope said that the United Nations does not have enough power and must be granted full governmental control for the good of humanity. Disturbingly, world religious leaders are also beginning to come together as one to preach from the same hymn sheet, instructing their sheep to accept the components of the New World Order's one world government. Now, Pope Francis is actively defying biblical scripture by working to create a one-world religion. First, Francis shocked the Christian world by hosting Islamic prayers and Quran recitals in the Vatican.
Pope Francis says he hopes his prayer summit with Israeli and Palestinian leaders at the Vatican will help bring peace to the Middle East. Francis says too many children have been killed by war. He says peace calls for the courage to say yes to encounter and not to conflict. Jewish, Christian, and Muslim prayers were offered in the Vatican gardens. Israeli President Shimon Peres and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas both attended that event.
Christians around the world should visit mosques and praise Allah, according to Pope Francis, who led by example on his visit to Istanbul by entering the Blue Mosque, taking off his shoes, facing Mecca and praising the Muslim God. Then came the pagan ceremony and brazen idol worship on Vatican grounds. And in case you missed it, world leaders from a diverse collection of communities called for world unity at an interreligious conference in Kazakhstan last week. According to Francis, religious pluralism, which is expressly forbidden in the Bible, is an expression of the wisdom of God's will. Here is some of the story from the Catholic News Agency. The Interreligious Congress in which Pope Francis participated this week in Kazakhstan adopted a declaration calling religious pluralism an expression of the wisdom of God's will in creation. The 35-point declaration was adopted by the majority of the delegates of the 7th Congress of the Leaders of the World and Traditional Religions, September the 15th, in the capital city of Nur Sultan. Pope Francis participated in the opening and closing ceremonies of the Interreligious Summit during his September the 13th to 15th visit in the Central Asian country.
The 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions started in Kazakhstan's capital Nur-Sultan. Pope Francis is among the guests, as well as high representatives of various religions. One of the goals of this Congress is to promote peace through dialogue.
It's absolutely necessary to have a dialogue on the challenges of this world and to have a strong collective call for peace and justice in this world as well.
The key for peace today in this unstable world is to engage, to talk, to be together, to try to understand each other and to know personally each other. And that's what can bring people together.
This year's Congress brings together delegates from more than 50 countries representing different world religions.
To compare with the first Congress, there were only 17 delegations. Now we have more than 100 delegations. So it shows that there is an interest in the world and there is a support of the spiritual leaders.
The most important thing that is being achieved here is to normalize the conversation between different religions through their religious leaders. It is to make it popular and important for religious leaders to come together as one, which is very rare and we don't see it very frequently, but it essentially normalizes the space of convening between different religions. And in our times and in our world, that's very important.
Many global challenges were raised at this Congress, and the pandemic was one of them. Some of the participants said that the pandemic has clearly shown how connected human beings are, stressing that this is something many seemed to forget.
It's not the first time the Pope has encouraged humanity to accept the New World Order and all that it entails. In 2019, Pope Francis signed a historic covenant with leaders of the world's major faiths, pushing us much closer to a one-world religion, one of the major goals of the New World Order. According to the document produced by Pope Francis and published on the Vatican's official website, all religions must be considered equal, and Islam is as acceptable to God as Christianity. In reality, the call for global government and one world religion by Pope Francis and other wealthy elitists has nothing to do with lifting up impoverished nations or saving humanity. Such a government would instead guarantee global wealth inequality, global surveillance of the kind promoted by Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum, and a world run by the exact corrupt interests who use the pandemic to consolidate wealth and power worldwide. From the moment that Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio became Pope in 2013, prophecy experts took to the airwaves claiming that the new Pope is Peter the Roman, the fulfillment of the prophecy of St. Malachi, and that Francis will be the final Pope and the end of the world. According to St. Malachi, an Irish saint who has correctly predicted the past 111 popes ahead of naming the 112th Pope, Peter the Roman is the Antichrist. Doomsday fans have found ways to link each phrase to a corresponding pope through the centuries. That includes John Paul II, who is associated with phrase number 110, from the labour of the sun, because he was born on the day of a solar eclipse and was entombed on the day of a solar eclipse as well. Benedict XVI, number 111, is supposedly Glory of the Olive, because some members of a branch of the monastic order founded by St. Benedict are known as Olivetans. Then there's number 112. According to St. Malachi, in the extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will nourish the sheep in many tribulations. When they are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. So how does Peter the Roman link to Pope Francis, who was born in Argentina? His parents were Italian immigrants from Rome, and his birth name contained the name Peter. One theologian, Michael K. Lake, is quoted as saying that Catholic and evangelical scholars have dreaded this moment for centuries. The world is now at a tipping point with a fierce battle raging for the soul of humanity. The globalists and their technocratic dreams of totalitarian rule threaten to consume humanity and destroy civilization as we know it. It's clear whose side Francis is on, and we haven't even covered the paedophilia scandal that's rotting the Catholic Church from the inside out. We should keep a very close eye on this Jesuit Pope during these pivotal years.